Can you please give me any advice? I am trying to write a fantasy book and it's hard to put words down. So if you're struggling with this, I recommend you plot your book. Plotting your book is the best way that you can be writing for almost all new writers. If you are a new writer, 99% of you are going to struggle and likely fail if you're trying to pantser. Figure it out as you go. You need to plot your story because you're still new at this and you don't know what you're doing and you don't have a writing strategy and you're not used to this yet. Plotting your book eliminates writer's block. It makes it so much easier for you. So plot your story. Know the beginning, the middle, the end, and all the stepping stones in between. You are then going to be able to write your story more easily because you already know where you're writing to. Now, once you get into the actual conversation of it and you're writing down words, you have to find a balance between conversation and world building. So we want to make sure we're involving all the senses. We want to make sure that it's not just word vomit and they're not just talking to each other. I have a tendency to, when I really get into writing my scenes, I just write dialogue and I write it back and forth between my characters. I'll put the dialogue tags in there, he said, she said, whatever. And then I forget that I have to do some of the world building. So if I'm in the zone and I'm writing, I just write, I just go. Whatever it is, and I get that dialogue out because the dialogue is the most important thing. When I get to the end of the paragraph or the scene that I'm doing, I'll then go back and I'll fill in some world building because I know I can't just have that dialogue. Now, some people lean heavily into the world building and not as much dialogue, and some people lean heavily into the dialogue and not as much world building. You have to be able to balance yourself out. But if you got a good thing going, let it go. Get to the end of that paragraph. It might take you 5 minutes. It may take you 10 minutes. It may take you 15 minutes. At the end of it, you're going to go back and read that scene over and fill in those blanks because you want to get the meat of it in, the important part of it in, the things you don't want to forget. And then you can add some of the other things in there to have that experiential stuff around them. So how people are reacting, how people are listening, the way that the room feels, the emotions and the internal stuff. You can add that in after you get the dialogue or vice versa. But you have to be able to get the meat of it out. So if you're in the flow, stay in the flow. And if you're not, then we have to consider a couple of things. If you're struggling to write your story, maybe this is not the right story for you right now. Maybe you need to take this and put it on a shelf and come back to it in a month or 3 months or 6 months. Maybe you need to try writing something else that feels like it's going to come more natural to you. You may have a really cool idea, but if it's not the right idea for you right now, if it doesn't vibe and resonate with you right now, it's going to be a struggle. And if it's a struggle, it's not going to be good. And it's not going to feel good. And it's not going to make you inspired to continue to do this. If it's a chore, you're not going to like it. So if it's not the right project for you right now, don't panic. It's okay. You have so much time to write the stories that are floating around in your head. You don't have to do it this second. If you're struggling with it, put it on the shelf. Walk away for a few days, or a week, or a month, or a few months. Try something else. See what comes better to you and focus on that. Because writing a book shouldn't take you very long. Most authors can get a book done in a couple of months, and you should be able to get a book done in a couple of months. If it's taking a year or more to write a story, you're doing something wrong for yourself. Now, everybody has their own writing strategies and things that resonate with them. And just because someone's way of writing works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You have to find the right strategy for you, which is why on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/KMRobinsonBooks, that's the author one, I have a series called Show Me How You Write. I have invited a ton of author friends onto my show, and they show us on screen exactly how they write, document for document, thing for thing that they've got on screen, programs that they use, and their strategies for how they write. Now you can go through, listen to these episodes and say, oh, that sounds good. That might work for me. That resonates with me. And you can take pieces from each of us and cobble it together to form a strategy that works right for you. You should not be writing the way that Book Talk tells you to write, because Book Talk don't know what they're talking about when it comes to this. You want to make sure you have the right thing for you. And if you are not getting your book done in a couple of months, it's not the right way for you. And you have to be able to recognize that. That's self-awareness as a writer. And so you have to be able to step back, evaluate what's working and what isn't working, move aside the things that aren't, and pull in some things that might work better. Try things out, test things out, see how it goes. So you need to really evaluate what you're doing. You may have a cool idea, you may have a cool strategy, but if it doesn't work for you right now, it's not going to work. And it's okay to set it aside and try something else and come back. You're not abandoning it. You're not giving up on it. You're just trying something better for right now, and you're going to come back to it later. So if you're struggling, I highly recommend you plot your story, you try different writing strategies, you try different ways of doing this, you put things aside if you need to, and if you're really, really struggling, you can always get a writing coach, because a writing coach will be able to come in and help you evaluate you on a specific level to you and give you suggestions, tips, hints, tricks for making things better for you in your strategy and how you write and the way that you're writing. So that's going to really be able to help build you up as well. And of course, if you're struggling, try something small elsewise. Like if you're trying to write a fantasy and you can't write fantasy, try writing something else. Just a short story, maybe a contemporary, maybe a sci-fi, just to see how it goes. If you're struggling overall, you're going to get information about yourself and be able to reevaluate. And if you're not struggling with that, maybe it's time to do a little more research on what you're trying to write, learn a little bit more about it, learn about the writing industry, the marketing side of things, all the stuff, and then try implementing it into how you're doing it. But coaches are a great way. Trying and rearranging the way that you're doing your strategy is a great way. And if you're struggling, try something else. And if you've got specific questions on this as well, feel free to drop those down below. I would love to help. But because I only have this broad idea of what you're doing, I can't be very specific. So go ahead and drop those down below.